Right, so hello, Erin. Would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Erin.
Mm.
I'm a comedian. I do stand up and make videos. Anything else?
Yeah, all right. So, as you know, this is like a podcast where I discuss neurodivergent issues and neurodivergency and other disability issues as well as that. So, the reason why I booked you on is because you're autistic and would like to chat to your experience about being autistic in comedy and stand-up. And so, like, t- I want to start by allowing you to tell me about your autism and how you got diagnosed and how you discovered you were autistic.
Yeah, so a while ago when I still lived in London, I went to my GP because I had lots of like OCD traits, so a lot of repetitive like a lot of things I need to repeat in a lot of rituals. So I was trying to get help for that because I've had that my whole life, but I just kind of finally got to the point where I was like, I'm going to try and do something about it. So then I was on the waiting list for that for a bit. And then I moved to Manchester and I managed to get like a Zoom CBT thing
Yeah,
in the pandemic. And kind of like near the end of that, the guy who was doing it for me referred me to get an autism diagnosis. So then I got passed on to that. And then it was I think it was like last year that I finally did all of that. You know, the interview when my
yeah.
parents did the interview, and then got a phone call that said on yeah, ASD basically.
Yeah, so I guess it's something that you kind of like to realize at first, and so it's something that if you hadn't gone through the process of speaking to your GP, thinking you have OCD and thinking you're traits like linked to OCD, and then that therapist saying it sounds more autism than OCD, so I guess maybe like had less obvious traits of autism, and I guess probably with a lack of representation of women and girls and the
Mm.
misdiagnosis of autism, it's easier end up, like blurring the lines between what could be like a mental health condition like OCD and autism.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't like flag it myself. I think in the last few years I was starting to think, oh, I don't know, I kept watching a few things and was like, I do actually share quite a lot of those traits. So I was thinking about contacting somebody, but then it just kind of seemed to naturally happen.
Yeah. So what were the traits you started noticing when you were thinking that, like something is like something I would want to get checked out, and or like what were the traits for to, OCD, and what were the traits have you realized, yes, maybe it is autism rather than OCD.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I could still have OCD, I guess,
Yes.
but the guy was not like he's not able to give away diagnoses.
Yeah.
So it was more like he said anxiety that portrays itself with OCD traits, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think what kind of wrapped up with him was he then started asking me like kind of different questions about like of relationships and friendships and stuff like that. And I think that's what did it, because obviously I have the kind of the rituals and the repetition, and I used to not be able to like get out the shower without doing a ritual and like all of
Yeah.
this stuff to be able to end things. I had to do all of these like all this counting. But then he started asking me like, how do you make friends and all of this stuff, and I was a bit more like, well, actually, I've always struggled a bit with like making and maintaining friends. And then I
Yeah.
think the questions started to lean more towards that side then.
Yeah. Also, like I think it's one of those things when you like trying to like learn about your own brain and try to like think that there's something different, and you like want to get diagnosis of something. I think it one thing about being neurodivergent and the whole neurodivergent thing, does get quite jaded and hard to get navigate through the space. As I say, that you could still potentially have OCD, so it's difficult to try to find out to like know what's what with each condition and kind of like learn how to know your mind in that situation, because you so much to learn about all these
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah, I think I still would like to have more help with management. It kind of felt a bit like an autism diagnosis was like a get out of jail card where you don't have to really help me anymore with stuff. Because I don't know,
Yeah,
it kind of went like, oh, it's autism. Should, like, let's say swipe our hands of that, and then now it's like I don't know where the like management skills, which direction to go for them, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Like I guess what I mean, because like it's like a thing where after diagnosis you experience, like you have that thing of where like, right, that's you got autism, case closed. Like no follow up with like
Yeah.
what support or like what, like helping you understand more about being autistic and different, like the small things in your day-to-day life that could help. Like with like managing like the extra bit of stress and
Mm.
anxiety around certain things. As I guess when you say like the organizing and management thing of like, I guess to manage, like to navigate through day-to-day tasks without, I guess, getting a bit overwhelmed with it.
Yeah, I think I would have like appreciated that. And I think because it's quite recent, I'm still picking up on things that like, oh, maybe that is actually linked with the like getting a bit overwhelmed. Like sometimes if I'm in situations where it's like supposed to be serene, like I've been in a hot tub and they're really like loud and bubbly, and then
Yeah,
everybody's like chatting, and then it's supposed to be like serene and calming, but it's quite overwhelming. And then
yeah.
I'm like, oh, maybe this is actually a bit linked to that. But I would have liked somebody to tell me how I can deal with that then.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I tend to sometimes ask, like, like, guests, what was like the experience of when you like was young and neurodivergent, of course, when you were younger and quite late diagnosed. So, what was that like experience being undiagnosed autistic, as like when you was like a child and teenager going through school and then going into adult life?
Yeah. Um, it's a bit hard to know because it would have been probably a really different experience if I did know.
Yeah,
But I didn't really enjoy school, so I feel like that's probably a pretty common experience of like I did everybody seemed to kind of be getting together and on this same wavelength that I
yeah,
just was not involved with. Um, but I think from the outside you wouldn't. I think it's a strange thing of like from the outside you might not have been able to tell.
yeah.
Um, but for me, I definitely was struggling,
Yeah,
and I
yes,
think yeah.
yeah, I guess yeah, that thing of like you end up masking quite a lot of it, and I guess that's why it wasn't picked up when he was in school and just like kind of like struggling quite quietly with things.
Yeah. I think so. I got by, and it looked like I was part of at least sitting with people or part of a group, but it was more like I just was sat there observing them than being part of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that can be quite a common thing with autistic people, as like it's quite like thing is when you're young and like and I guess when you were like getting asked about like those offensive things when it came to like diagnosis, and then I guess you was like, well, like in your diagnosis process, it was asked to reflect a lot on your younger
Mm,
life, and so I guess you notice certain things of how, as you said, how you like more observant rather than like joining in on things. And like it's going to be quite hard to navigate those social settings because there's a lot, like for all the noise and environment around you, like there's a lot of things you would end up trying to have to learn about, like the social situations, and it can be quite exhausting to know what's going on in the people's lives around you and how to deal with that. And that's definitely like hard navigation for the emotion, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of things again, it's like it could be, oh, she's shy, or she's just a bit different, or she doesn't get on with these people. I think I thought at school like, oh, it's just these people I don't get on with, because obviously you're like with the same people every day. I was
Yeah,
like, oh well, once I leave, I'll find people I get on
yeah.
with. And I
And
was like,
like,
oh no, it's the same. It's the
yeah,
same everywhere you go, actually.
because like I think for some people who like like us as like school age and like know it's autistic but still quite still independent, and
Mm,
will still go to places on their own and find themselves. I guess probably then when you would try to go to university, if you did go to
yeah.
university, then I guess that is hope that you probably hope then when you get to adulthood you can find a bit more people like yourself or who have similar interests. And how did you find that then when you was got out of school?
Yeah, so I was looking for that definitely. And then I think the same I think a similar thing just happened. I think I have, especially when I was younger, I had more of like an outward appearance of someone who is somebody who does fit in. So then I would get like adopted into groups, and then it just was like a mismatch and didn't really work. So it took me a while. I've
Yeah.
definitely in my adult life since school and since uni, I actually find it much easier to make friends now than I did when I was younger.
Yeah, I can understand that definitely because I guess like thing is from when you're like younger, you kind of learn a lot about yourself and how to like I guess find like the right people for you. And again, and when you're younger, it's quite difficult because like when you're in school, you just like jump like jumbled in with like loads of different people, and it's like a lot of people you don't know a lot of like I guess things about making friends, and not having the same interests, and like not able to talk about each other's emotions or like certain things about how to like connect on the level of being a friend. So sometimes it's easier for an autistic person to do it.
Mm. I think also growing up, like I've learned how to communicate better, I think. So I think maybe I was quite difficult to read, and then I wasn't able to explain where I was coming from.
Yeah,
Whereas I think fun, like ironically, I think autism kind of can make you really good at communicating because you are kind of forced to.
yeah,
So it kind of ends up, I think maybe you start off like being, everybody reads you wrong and you can never really get across what you're trying to say. And then, I don't know, and then because you're like forced to really find the words and make sure that you're getting your point across.
I get that for sure because it's like I think like the common experience of autistic people is we kind of end up analyze and kind of end up thinking a lot about the social situations we find ourselves in, and trying to like often like process like of like social interactions and events a lot longer after than like a neurotypical person, and thinking about the consequences, how people interpret these things. So I guess in those situations then for like how we want to be able to learn a language and what's going through other people's minds in that situation, can I end up putting the work into actually learn our language of like what other people are trying to or other people are thinking and how to make sense of things. So I think there is something there that from that, we can end up being, better at learn better communication skills.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's just like the extra work that goes in
Yeah,
it. Yeah, then you kind of just, and then I think become more, even a bit more intuitive as well, because you're like you said, like I'm constantly going over every aspect of
yeah,
like a conversation or a moment to the point where now, and I also think it's because, like going back to being at school where I was more of like an observer, so then you're seeing things
yeah,
instead of like joining in with them.
yeah, I get that. And I guess from like what we said, like about like I say, trying to fit in with the crowd, and kind of like guess fades into the background of social situations. I guess when probably like not many people would have thought that, in school that like if ever would be like your peers and teachers or whatever that you would have gone to Korean stand-up comedy. So how did you start, and uh how did you find yourself in the area of stand-up comedy and doing comedy?
Um, my mum actually found like a newspaper article of like a comedy writing and performance course in Southampton. So I actually went to uni and did like comedy then, and then from there just kind of have continued, and now I've kind of I'm definitely like fully kind of in it doing it now. I
Yeah,
think also it's difficult. I think this has also probably been a difficult part about doing stand up and being autistic as well, is that it is a lot of like social navigation and networking, which I think why it's taken me so long to get to the point that I'm at, because I thought it was just like doing comedy, but that's just one aspect of it. There's so much more
yeah.
social game of it.
So when you did you say you yourself, or did you say like your mother found an art and saw that in the newspaper? Yeah, so it was yourself, was it?
What's that? Sorry.
Oh, the ad in the newspaper that
Yeah.
said about a stand-up course. Was it yourself noticing that?
My mum found
Oh,
it.
so when your mother looked at that, so what was the thing that thought, right, that would be a great course for Evan to
Yeah.
try to do at university?
Well, at first I wanted to go to uni and do acting, but I think I've always been like the funny one in my family. So I'm the youngest, so I always got away with being quite cheeky. And
Yeah,
yeah, so it was all, so it's like again, it's the people who were close to me who knew me well, and that I
yeah.
was really into comedy and making people laugh and performing. So yeah, that's why my mum found it for me.
Oh, that's quite good, because I guess when you like had was with like your close family and close people, you were, I guess, a lot from like when you were in school, like quite shy and a bit more anxious, you were able to like find like your space to express yourself and mask a bit and find the confidence then, and like trying to find your like funny element and funny like humor side, and there is something quite good that you found that. And I guess then comedy then what became like focused interest and just way of finding yourself then.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, again, it's a way to communicate, and it's a way to kind of do social interactions more on my terms. And when I go on stage, I invite you into my world.
Yeah,
So as there's just a bit more control there,
yeah,
and I get to show people what it's like to be in my head instead of like figuring out their own social
yeah.
ideas.
I suppose like to me like uh, stand-up comedy seems like something incredibly difficult and hard thing to, have the confidence to do, or like, to be able, like to pull off in a way, because it, like anyone could think that they could perform as, a stand-up so, and then, like you end up having a cold sweats, and then, like end up, not having a great time on stage.
Mm.
So as say, it does take a lot to do that. So what was it finding that? Do you think, I guess, if, when you found yourself able to, unmask and, allow people into your world rather than you trying to, put yourself in their world, was able to, I guess, enjoy yourself and find a bit more confidence on stage and find your stage presence?
Yeah. I think, and also I think now it's just about, because obviously there's just always going to be some audiences that don't accept me. So it's just like really finding the ones that do and trying to, you know, find myself on stage in front of people who are really open-minded and want to come into the world.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing with like like I've seen a lot of people with like stand-up comics and stand-up acts, like there is a lot more comedians getting diagnosed with neurodivergent conditions, whether it's ADHD and like a minority of autistic people and other neurodivergent conditions. So I think there's definitely that element of like the spaces growing for people to, be themselves, and, I guess neurodivergent people being accepted on stage. But do you find that doing that stand-up course allowed you to, I guess, you find your own style and kind of like work on like some of the techniques and skills around performing stand-up comedy and, presenting yourself on stage?
Yeah, well, it was kind of more of like a uni course. So I got like
Yeah,
a BA at the end of it, but there was like stand-up elements of it. So that I think that was a good place to start, because it's not it was you had less exposure to like the real world.
yeah,
So there was more, you could kind of more privately find your own voice, so that when I actually went into the real world, I had a bit more of an idea of what I was doing.
yeah, yeah. Better that than finding yourself chucked into the deep end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from that, how have you found just like what other things have you been like able to focus on, like in your comedy and, like sets and, doing your, when you're doing stand-up, or the things you found yourself talking about, and, like what stories and anecdotes have you found yourself telling to, in your stand-up shows?
Um, I don't really do stories or anecdotes. I do, it's more like kind of like absurdist observations and wordplay. So I do like short jokes, and it's kind of is like observational comedy, but more from a subverted angle.
So, like, tell me about that, like, type of style. Tell me a bit more about that style and what type of way is that is, I guess.
Yeah, I always find it difficult to explain what. Basically, I I I don't really like the rhythm of comedy. I find it too predictable. So the kind of the way that a lot of people speak in doing comedy doesn't really sit with me very well, because it's so predictable, it just goes over my head. So it's important for me to have my own rhythm and my own way of speaking and my own way of hiding the jokes and like the rhythm of where everything's going. And then I think basically what I want to do with my jokes is, I think there's this I think observational comedy is like when people say something and the audience goes, "Oh yeah, I know that. I'm just like that." But what I want to do is I say something and the audience goes, "Oh my God, I've never thought about that before. Now I'm going to think about it all the time," if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you from that because you know, I get with observational comedy, as I say, it's probably one of those things that's commonly done in the industry, and you know, like you can see plenty of observational comics, and they're like there's common set of themes, and you know,
Mm.
like trends that you might notice if you go to see stand-up comics who are observational like that, and it's like I guess you found your way of being original with that, and you know if you found your own rhythm and flow of you know like telling, presenting jokes, that does help to bring a bit of shock and surprise to the audience, and you know guess keep them like in a bit more suspense, and you know with less expectation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like to work with silence a lot as well. So a lot of like tension making and bringing, like bringing it down, and then I really enjoy working with the atmosphere, um,
Yeah.
instead of just rattling off.
Yeah,
Oops.
I think it's like that kind of thing about like if sometimes I guess like if autistic people are to do comedy and to neurodivergent people, sometimes there can be that thing of like finding a way of thinking outside the box and finding something original to do with it that you might not expect or like find from like
Mm.
many of the other acts on like a comedy lineup or like in a like festival like Edinburgh Fringe. Like I like you might find that with like a comedian like Hannah Gadsby who like kind of try to rewrite the rules of comedy, you know, and that's quite an interesting way of like trying to I guess rethink that and like how not like trying to make a laugh a minute.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the silences help the laughs. So it's more of like it builds the tension, and also I think some people are, neurotypical people maybe are a bit more uncomfortable with silences than I am,
Yeah,
because it's like they feel like something needs to be there. But I think I don't know, for me it's important for people to know that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and you'll survive it, and actually you can
yeah.
find a lot of joy in it. um so just like join it and see how it goes.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it, and you know, doing it like that, and like so. How have you found it, like self, like even like developing throughout like your career, and like how have you found yourself kind of like as you say, you know, like doing a comedy course, yeah, has helped you like find your own way of doing comedy before that, but like in terms of like performing gigs, how like from like going around the circuit and you know doing different stand-up gigs, you know, from like the lifestyle of being a stand-up comic, how was that developed, and like have you had any like like great experiences that you could learn that you learned from, or you know like have you had any like negative experiences and things that maybe like certain like venues or like using stand-up that still needs to be improved on like neurodivergent autistic people in this space?
Mm. Well, I think there's a lot of places I've had not very good experiences at. Because I think they just they kind of do a one style, and then I think a few places know that they should be putting women on the bill, so they put them on, but they don't make the space like a place where they can thrive.
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So they do it because they need it and they want to look good. But when it comes down to it, we do get a bit just thrown to the wolves. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be looked at, is just it's good to have neurodivergent people and women and people of color on bills, but you need to make the space somewhere where they can actually do their best, instead of just keeping the space the same and then throwing them into it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
So
yeah,
yeah.
I'd like to see some changes with that, of just having more open-minded, or just gearing up the audience to be more open-minded and go along with what's happening.
So what specific things have you would you like to see to make sure the audience a bit more open-minded, or for more women, disabled, non-binary, to people of color,
Yeah.
more people from minority backgrounds are included in the space? So what would make you feel a bit more included and feel that things are more easier, like if you're from a different minority background, to feel a bit more safe and comfortable doing comedy in such environments?
Yeah, I'm not completely sure, because I know that a lot of audiences come with a very set idea of what they want and what they're
Yeah,
going to. So it might come down, I think it comes down to the promoters of promoting it, like with the ideas that saying, I'll be, there's so many different styles, so many different people, be excited, be open-minded to this, not just it's going to be funny. And then
yeah,
maybe some of it lies on the MC of prepping the audience to see something different and to be ready for it. Um, I think it's difficult because it's like a cultural shift, right? So
yeah,
it's like people from towns where they have like a very set idea of what comedy is, what they like, what they deem as good, and it's just trying to get them a bit more involved in some
yeah.
change.
I'd say that, it's us as, again, today is a tough thing to ask you, and tough thing just to generally think of the ideas for us, because it's like a thing that wouldn't change overnight, and
Yeah,
but something that does take years into to make that change happen. As even if you might be performing in a bigger city, whether that be London, Birmingham, Manchester, but if you maybe performing in a smaller town,
mm,
where you might not have much of a diverse audience, and it might be not as a diverse area, then that there might be some people might not be as open-minded or tolerant to experience new thing in comedy. And I guess it's just making sure like it's built as an inclusive night for people in minority backgrounds. And I guess finding different ways of getting maybe even finding women making women non-binary, to people of color, disabled people, to come on to these events and watch comedy and make it a bit more accessible as an audience member.
yeah, definitely. I think you can definitely feel the difference when you're like in a city and kind of more outskirts. There definitely is like you feel the difference and you can see it in the audience, and it's just a different atmosphere. um so yeah, I guess it is just getting more of the community out to these events as well,
Yeah,
because they're probably there, they're just obviously not being
yeah,
targeted with the promotion and stuff. So encouraging a more diverse group of people to come watch the shows as well,
yeah,
it just adds, I think it just makes it makes having a really diverse audience just makes comedy so much better, because people are less likely to form a group together. So
yeah,
people are more likely to be individuals and to express how they feel, and they can like it or not like it. That's fine. I don't mind if people like it or not like it. You're absolutely free to receive this in whatever way you want to. It's just when there becomes like a mob mentality within the audience,
Yeah,
it's not enjoyable, because it's like, oh, you're not laughing because you don't want the audience to think that you're wrong.
yeah,
But when you have diversity and people don't know each other, and there's just, you're just so much more likely to get pockets of people who love it and then pockets who hate it. And to me, that's what makes live comedy super interesting.
yeah. It does make it more interesting. Now, the thing is, it's like with the mob mentality and like any like I guess the more like that kind of adds to like a bit more of a hostile environment for like a comedian who might not want to go to certain like venues or gigs just on that basis, or like same with certain like audience members of different backgrounds, because it's like feeling less welcome, and it doesn't help with like feeling quite culturally polarized at the minute, with certain things, and like I guess like certain discussions about speech, and like hate speech and such. So, and as just like it's like thing with comedy, it just needs to be like taken seriously, and the arts to be taken seriously, especially as it does help society a lot.
Yeah, I think that's also a problem, is that comedy is not seen as much of an art as other art forms. Um, so then it just doesn't get the attention and the help that it needs, or the funding it needs to make it better and more inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like as you like say, it's like not like certain themes or topics you address in the comedy, but I guess having a space to like perform as like a disabled neurodivergent woman, it does help like people who are neurodivergent and disabled to have careers and have like a space where they can talk in a like address and bring awareness to like certain issues that affect them, and kind of like challenge stereotypes and misconceptions around it. Because I think probably like important thing is like in fact having a diverse lineup is like challenging like stereotypes of maybe like artists, like how people see autistic people as not being funny people to like like if you got different dis disabled or neurodivergent people
Mm.
of color, then there's a lot of stereotypes they can challenge for the own comedy.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's also important to have like not just one autistic comedian on the lineup, but having more, because then if you just have one and you go, oh, that's what all autistic comedians like. But as soon as you have like, oh, there's three women on this lineup and they all have completely different styles and they're all doing completely different things,
Yeah,
then people start to understand that there's not just there's not just one stereotype, that actually everybody's
yeah,
doing completely different stuff. So it's not really enough to just put one
yeah,
person on the bill, I don't think, doesn't it?
yeah. And it's like it's that thing of like the importance of making sure like that like people who want to try out comedy and get into the industry like have access to like open mic nights, yeah, and they can easily come into like a comedy night wherever they local places, and like have a chance and be welcome to try it out.
Mm. Yeah, I think that probably is where a lot of it's quite difficult, right? Is that the open mic nights and stuff. I don't know, for from a point of view of being like autistic, if you want to get far from those things, you have to be really social, and you have to talk to
Yeah,
everybody, and you have to know the right things to say. And so then I think that's where it gets difficult, and some people can never get to the next level, or if you're disabled in a different way, and the venues, you can't really access the venues. It's like you're already at a disadvantage in the first
Yeah,
stage of getting into comedy. That
yeah,
it just because it's just so much more work, and it's so much more difficult to progress.
yeah, because it's like that, those open mic nights would be accessible and inclusive to anyone of any background, and and that's important, should be important because it just helps makes things fairer and more universal. And so, like, we've been talking about like stand-up comedy, and you said that when you went to, like, when you was getting started in university, and one of the things you wanted to do from after you finished like college or school, you went to try to do acting, and I guess probably like you're definitely more creative than academic. So, have you been able to do any acting off that, and like, have you any interest in pursuing some more acting opportunities?
Yeah, so I'm definitely starting to get more into acting again now. I think comedy kind of like takes over your life a little bit, and then you think that's the one direction, and then um, I've kind of settled back into, oh, actually, I do actually want to get back into more acting. So I've done a few like commercials, not that that counts very much as acting, but yeah, still building my show reel. I was in a music video the other day, so that'll come out soon. It's just picking up as many projects as possible,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
yeah, again, understand with like if you're doing stand-up comedy and trying to like get breakthrough and get into the industry, that does take a lot few years, and it does take a lot of your time and effort. And with, like you said, even though like commercials not really like the best of acting,
Yeah.
it's one way to pay the bills anyway, I guess. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
one
exactly.
and it's one thing that you can add on to your like CV, or like like your acting CV as a start, that you done like certain like projects like that, and guess it's one so on into actually, so when you're able to try things and try to do stuff, and then figure the like got a music video coming out of somebody, and then guess you're open to see how that flourishes, and goes on throughout as on the side of your comedy career then.
Yeah, I think the good thing about being a comedian and wanting to do acting is that you can write all your own stuff. So it's like you don't have to wait for other people to have projects to that you can be in. So I
Yeah,
write sketches and stuff that I can put myself in and film. So I think that that kind of helps. Then also you know that you like the part and everything. You know that
yeah,
you like the vision.
yeah,
Yeah, so
okay,
that's a good part of it.
yeah. So, like, in terms of like writing like scripts and stuff like that, I guess I said that probably like from a young age that you was more interested in like the performing arts, as to like being academic in school and college. So, like, would you say that from like that like like and like compete to like college and university, was it like something that you started to think about, like starting doing creative writing and script writing, and like found your interest veering into more of that creative space then?
What was the question? Sorry.
Or like, when you were in like younger, that when you was like at the starting point about thinking about your career, and when you like
Yeah.
younger, did you start to find yourself like doing creative writing as like a part, more like a pastime thing, and that helped you to get into start focusing on like stuff like this now into your career?
Yeah, I think I was always into like performing and writing stuff. I've like found my mum is like cleaning out the attic, so I've found like lots of stuff that I wrote, which probably wasn't very good when I was younger, but I was, yeah, always like writing stuff or wanted to perform in things. Um, I was quite good at like academic stuff, but I just wasn't interesting to me. And I think, I'm not sure, is that like an autistic trait, is when you just kind of, once you're interested in something, that's just what you, and everything else just fades away, kind of,
Yeah,
even if you can do it and you're good at it, it
I,
just was like never something I wanted to.
I think that definitely is one of those autistic traits, like being able to hyper focus and, like know like what you're not interested in and, like what you want to pursue, because, like you end up having your focused interest. That you can have like that tunnel vision and, like can only like I guess fade out and you blur everything else into the
Yeah.
background and yeah,
Yeah, I think it just is like, oh, I could do that, but I don't want to. So
yeah,
it just disappears now, I guess.
yeah. And I guess that's something that I guess helps you like just end up focusing on that one thing and like getting it right. So, like from, from your like creative writing stuff and, like what stuff you meant to work on and produce, hopefully one day to produce yourself, or the types of projects that you would like to see yourself like doing and writing and creating and
Yeah, so I'm like writing a script at the moment. That would be really cool if it was ever made. It's
yeah,
it's a bit like, it's a bit like Inside Out, but the kind of going into adulthood version
yeah,
of, so the personifying kind of your conscious and your subconscious, and the moment that they kind of meet each other, is what it's about. So that's one of my projects. I kind of always have a million projects going on at the same time, because
yeah,
I like, I'll have all these ideas and then I just want to do everything. But
yeah.
that's, yeah, one of the scripts at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things is like like your brain can end up being quite busy and like thinking of
Yeah,
so many different things and I think one of those things is you can have like so many ideas but like the struggle then is like knowing how to like put that all into practice because like know to like whittle it all down and get a plan sorted and I guess from then when you started talking about like when you got your diagnosis I guess it was one of those like things that with like executive functioning and all that and was more of like time management and organization, I guess that you feel that you need that bit of support with.
yeah, I just wish I had some help with, I get overwhelmed like a lot, but
Yeah,
just by my own brain. So like, and then I become paralyzed, and it's just not very time effective, because it
yeah,
just means I'm just, it's too much and then I can't handle it. And
yeah,
I wish I had a way to just switch that off, and then I could actually do what I want to
yeah.
do.
Because like I find even like somebody who's like like diagnosed like at age 10, it's like something that like when you're like even like if you're diagnosed young as a child, it's like one of those things like you still don't have much support when you get to adulthood, often like knowing how to like organize yourself and like as I said, you like get overwhelmed and that's the difficult thing is when you like trying to like do things you need to do as an adult and like manage each different task and what you gotta do in your life. And as you said, you
Yeah.
kind of get like that either task paralysis and then you're like kind of brain like gets overloaded and then freezes up for a while.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's just, it's an overload.
Yeah,
And then even when I'm doing like loads of stuff, I feel like I need loads of recovery time as well.
yeah,
And then I
yeah,
feel like I'm wasting time, and then that frustrates me. And then
you
it's
know.
just feeling frustrated.
Um, and I think that like that kind of like it's one interesting thing that I found from like the idea of like doing like that like subconscious and conscious thing. I guess it kind of allows you to explore like you would explore your emotions through that bit of creative writing and like that like being able to process that and like how your emotions work. And because
Yeah,
that does sound like a very interesting script idea and idea for, that type of writing project.
Yeah, I think it's just I wanted to pinpoint that time, that time when you start to know yourself and kind of become yourself.
Yeah,
Because I think through school, and then even through uni, it's like you're just figuring things out. You're just kind of existing. And what do you like? You don't really know what you like. You don't know who you like. You don't know
yeah,
what you want to go to and what you want to do. And then there is kind of like eye-opening moments after maybe in your 20s where it's like you become yourself and you start and then you get a taste of it and then it goes and then you know
yeah,
that's kind of what life is quite difficult actually to weirdly it takes a lot of time to become yourself.
yeah. Because in a way, it's like, I mean, it's like every like certain like of a decade, or like every like certain so many different points in your life, you end up finding yourself again, and again after
Yeah,
that. Because as I say, like when you're in your 20s, then like, or starting out like between like the age of like 18 to 19, 20 and all that, like you're finding yourself in like what you want to do for the like like a university wise, or like starting relationships or whatever like that,
yeah,
like you got like so many things as you jumped into the deep end of being an adult. That's super stressful, and that
yeah,
like kind of stress and anxiety is not always talked a lot of often and stuff and represented. And especially like if you like got like a neurodivergent condition, or like as I say, you're trying to like you're figuring your own mind out to that point, and like whether you have like OCD and finding out or you're autistic, and then like you get a point of like as people say, the midlife crisis and all that. So I
yeah,
think there's definitely different generational points to that, and I think as adults, I think often not, we like get that thing of like, it's okay to talk, and like get that message about like we should, talk about feelings, but no, often not. We don't talk about navigating the feelings and how that can be a challenge, even though we we get taught about feelings from like a young age in school and whatever.
yeah. I think also it's like we, we don't talk about how it's okay to change your mind. Like
Yeah,
you're allowed to have thought something when you were 18 and then not think it now. And people are supposed to like evolve and grow. But I think like a lot of people want everybody to stay the same because then they understand who they are. And then when
yeah,
they start changing, it's like, oh, it's too much. They've changed. But I think we need to we need to accept that it's okay for your opinions to change and your outlooks and your views to change,
yeah.
and
Because
that other people to accept it.
yeah, because it's like the world keeps on changing, and
Yeah,
we can all go learn with that, and you're not going like know everything that you need to know in life by the age of like 20, and like use like still think the same at the age of 90 or whatever. So that,
yeah,
and I think it's like as you say with that, you need to keep like a space for having an open mind, like, and kind of being able to have that space for like nuance and patience with people to learn, and like not expecting everything to know everything. And I
yeah,
think sometimes with like neurodivergent or neurotypical, autistic or not, it's like in all those communities there's definitely that feeling,
yeah. Where we know that things are, we're not
yeah,
always gonna. Yeah, I think it is, sister. Maybe it is like a neurotypical thing of like. I think a lot of people find they don't want to budge how
yeah,
how they feel or what they're like because that's what feels comfortable to them. So maybe it comes again.
yeah,
I feel like we go through our lives feeling always a little bit uncomfortable. So
yeah,
being uncomfortable with stuff is not like a big deal really in the
yeah,
same way.
yeah, exactly. And so and what, like we talked a lot about from, your experience with like, like school to, doing Korean comedy, and so, and like your creative work. And so like on like what projects and what things like do you find yourself now, and is there anything like right now that you want to like promote and, like say something about you doing it at the minute on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm doing this. um, it's called the Global Mega Cup Institute of Manchester, and we're doing an event in Manchester at Cultplex, which used to be Grub, on the 25th of May. And I'd love if people could come to that. That would be really good.
Ah, that sounds good. And so, like, what type of things can you expect from that event? Is it like rave
It's
your
like an
comedy?
immersive business wellness event. It's a bit silly, but come check us out on our Instagram. You'll get a bit more of an idea. I don't want
Ah,
to give
great.
too much.
Mhm. And so, like, I like sometimes ask what like like the things that people should be like aware of or like take away from this, that like you were to like learn something from this chat, or take some sort of information away, and what you want people to know from this.
Oh, um, oh, that's a it's a difficult one.
Is
I guess with if you're like getting into comedy, and I know that there is a lot of like frustrations around trying to get into it and knowing that you can't socialize in the same way. I think you just got to be relentless, I think, and just keep doing it. And not everybody's going to be able to read you properly, and not everybody's going to be able to understand your point of view, but some people will. And that's what's gonna take you, I
yeah.
think. That's what's gonna make it all work.
And like from like one thing of like your experience from autism and being neurodivergent, that you find that like people don't understand, or you wish people were to understand, what were like, is there anything that springs to mind of what one thing like that you would wish people were to know?
um I guess for some people, I guess I just want them to know that I am I'm not. I think I used to always get she's shy, and that shy and quiet, and that used to really frustrate me. Um, just want people to know that I'm not shy and quiet. I'm just not interested about what you're talking about. So I'm not contributing. It's not me. It's you.
Yeah, I think that's the blunt and real way to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah. And like I always like to like tend to like ask this tough question, and like I always think, what one thing in the world would you like to see like improved for the better for neurodivergent autistic people?
um, I think it just goes back to what we were saying about kind of diversity. I think there's like, I don't know, whenever you see like an autistic character or autism portrayed, it's always portrayed, I feel, in a very similar way. And it's like it's a spectrum, and yet we only have one point on the spectrum being
Yeah,
portrayed in films and TV. And there's so many more people, and everybody's so different, and we're all doing different things. So
yeah,
it just would be just having more variety. I think everything always needs more variety.
yeah. Because it's like like if you want to learn like understand more about autistic people, like like read like pick up like different many like either books, or like if you find any like certain media that's written or like like talked about by autistic people, whether it's books, as I say, TV shows, stuff like that, like give a variety of information, and like read plenty different people's stories or accounts of being autistic, and make such broad knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. and tend to just say, is there anywhere like you want people to follow you on social media? Is there any like place where you can find people online? Well, they can find you.
Yeah, so at Eryn Tett Comedy. So that's ERYNTETT Comedy.
Yeah, on all social media platforms.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything else you want to say that I haven't said already? Because like think like
I don't think so. Just thanks for having me.
yeah,
I don't get to talk about autism very often, so I think it's nice to talk about it. It's still new, so I'm still figuring everything out and trying to link it all together. And maybe one day I'll find out a bit more about it and also develop the skills and the areas I need to
yeah.
actually deal with stuff.
Yeah, if you ever want to talk more about it, and like if you had a bit more to say on the topic of being autistic and all that, like feel free to like ask to come back on again, and we're happy to have you again on the podcast.
Development once I've
Yeah,
learned more. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Like you did a good interview, and I think it's good to chat to people in like, early on after take notes at any point of the autistic journey and all that. And yeah, thanks for coming on. This has been a great chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Have a good rest of the day.
and you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. End meeting.